All right, got it, being live streamed. Nice ceiling, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Hope.
Okay, the YouTube is working. We're good. A month off and it almost forgot.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, you're right, it's just been a month
Still
and
hope.
a few days, or a month and a day.
Yeah. Hi, Michael.
Hey there, guys. Good evening to you. Tell me, tomorrow morning, is it 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock tomorrow?
11 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
11.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Nicholson emailed saying she's on her way. Her computer startup is just a little slow.
Okay.
We can-
We'll wait.
What is on at 11 o'clock tomorrow?
The groundbreaking that we got the invitation to for the health center.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just while I've got you there, everybody, this is a pretty, well, it could be a pretty loaded agenda. So let's just try to keep rolling tonight and get this done so we don't last long into the night.
Here comes Councillor Nicholson now.
Oh, good. Okay. Hi, Maureen.
Hi, Gary.
Okay, here we go then. Welcome. So this is the revised agenda for the regular council meeting of Monday, September the 27th, 2021. First piece of business is we'll open the council meeting, and it is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add or quantify? No, if I don't see anybody, so we will approve the agenda by consensus. Move on to public comments. Oh, anybody out there in the arcade? Can't hear
You're
you.
muted.
Muted.
I've not received any requests for public comment this evening.
All right, thank you. And we'll move on to the late items on the agenda. Did everybody get those, by the way? Just as a, they were
Yeah.
just, there was 3 letters there, so that's great. Thank you. Missed that one. Too much time off, I guess. Eh? Consent agenda. What have we got? Does anybody see anything that they'd like some clarification on or anything like that? I see Allison, go ahead.
I'd just like to pull 3.11, just I think we need to twig the resolution.
Okay. 3.11 and Allison. Anybody
Sorry,
else?
Is that 3.1 or
3.11.
Oh, thank you.
3.11.
got it?
Okay, Maureen,
3.6, please.
3.6 for Maureen, thank you. Anybody else besides those two? Okay, I don't see any hands up. Okay, and the council recommendation is here.
The council approved the items as outlined in the September 27th, 2021 consent agenda
Thank you, as amended.
Amended.
as amended.
Okay, and I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And okay, so we're gonna review those. We'll just take them in order there. Maureen, you're first at 3.6.
Thank you, Mayor Ander. Just first of all, I'd like to thank the planning staff, Amanda Mihaly, for pulling together this report. It was informative. I sometimes get asked questions about the number of doc applications that council has received and how they have been handled. The one question that I have relates to the doc applications that are on hold or rejected. And I guess the question's directed to Daniel. Those doc applications are at the Cape. And I'm assuming that the on hold element is that there have been applications to renew the dock licenses at the Cape, and that Flinro has put them on hold, or that we have put them on hold. So I guess the question is, can you confirm that those are the applications at the Cape, and who's put them on hold?
Right. I mean, I think those ones are marked as rejected and that council recommended rejection. I do periodically with those ones seek an update from Flinro. And every time I receive an update, it's that the decision has not been made.
Okay.
It's sort of a, every 6 months tradition that I ask them for an update on the status of the application.
It's always a good thing. That isn't what I understood from the report. I understood from the report that they were on hold or rejected. So that's good to hear that they are effectively in abeyance. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you, Maureen. And I had the exact same question, and because I don't think anything's come to council that we've rejected. It's been done at a staff level.
So no, those applications for I can't recall at this moment if it was a lease renewal or if it was a transfer of a lease to a specific permission. Council recommended rejection for those 4 tenure applications at Cape Project Curtis, and there was one other one on the north coast where it was within the setback, and council recommended they revise to avoid the setback, and they haven't come back. That was several years ago.
Okay, yeah, I can see that from the map is where they are. There's no question about that. Okay, well, thank you for that. Do you want to read the recommendation there, please, Maureen?
Sure. The council received the staff report entitled Review of Crown Land Referrals for Private Mortgage Facilities, dated September the 13th, 2021, for information. So moved.
Thank you. Second to Sue Ellen, and all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And we'll move on to Allison, 3.11.
Okay, nothing, I'm not objecting to something being put in the provisional budget, but I don't think we direct people traditionally to spend money in a budget that we haven't even talked about or discussed.
Mhm.
So I think it has to be along the lines that council direct staff to include a provision in the draft 2022 budget for an expenditure of up to $1,000 for the installation of a boat rack at Seymour Bay.
I don't have a problem with that. Anybody else? Okay, are you moving that, Allison?
I'll move that.
Okay, I'll second it. And I'll ask a question, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Allison, for that clarification. All right, so delegations, hope we have none. Thank you. And we're going to move on to business arising from the minutes. Now, this could be, we just had a quick talk here before you got here, Maureen, and to your point there in the letter that Daniel's going to give us a sort of high level overview, and then we'll go through this point after point. And we have 30 minutes in here. I don't think we're going to make 30 minutes, but I really want to try to keep this as curt as we possibly can. So just keep that in mind, please. Now I got to see somebody's hand up. Whose hand is that there? You got a little hand. Is that yours, Sue Ellen, or Daniel's? It seems to be halfway between you and Daniel. Okay, don't worry about it.
Nothing on my screen.
Land use amendment bylaw number 528, public hearing report. Daniel Martin, manager of planning and development. Over to you, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me. All right. Do you see that presentation okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I have for your consideration today, bringing bylaw number 528, a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 57. So it makes a series of amendments to that bylaw. We held a public hearing for this bylaw July 12th, 2021. So this report brings along with the minutes in the agenda, brings the collection of the comments that we received on this bylaw and brings a series of amendments for council in consideration based on the comments received. Staff are not looking for consideration of third reading of the bylaw at this point, but feel the appropriate time to do that would be after council gives direction on a series of amendments, so that staff can make the amendments and come back with the amended bylaw 528. So the public hearing was held July 12th. 74 written comments were submitted, 22 verbal comments made at the public hearing. As well, there were comments made at the beginning of the public comment section of 2 different council meetings. And so staff are providing an overview on a series of potential amendments to bylaw number 528 based on the comments received, and council may wish to propose additional amendments beyond those brought forward by staff. So just as by way of overview, the staff report identifies 9 potential areas to discuss amendments. One of them, the section on automotive repair, has a series of sort of different sections within it. And so what staff feels appropriate, and hopefully council agrees, is we'll go through these one at a time rather than doing the whole thing and then going back to the start. So basically the presentation provides just an overview of what's in the staff report on each of these sections. So I can go off the screen, or then I can turn it off for a discussion without the shared screen. So the first one right off the bat would be the size and complexity of the bylaw. So many letters and speakers spoke to the feeling that bylaw 528 was larger than should be considered housekeeping, or larger than council should consider in one bylaw. So staff in reviewing this looked at, okay, how would we break it down, and sort of thought maybe, if council wants to divide it into smaller bylaws, it would be, I could identify probably 5 different bylaws that we could do and do each one on its own. I mean, doing this would mean dividing bylaw 528 and bringing each bylaw then as a separate one, starting at first reading. And I've put this first on the list because if council wishes to proceed in this manner, then we could go over the remaining 8 items sort of for general council direction, but ultimately they would be decided with new bylaws and new public hearings.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. So is anybody, I guess the first general discussion is, anybody want to scrub this bylaw 528 and break it down into 5 different components? Or should we try to give it a run today, which have the sort of significant issues that were dealt with during the omnibus bill, and see if we can't refine some of them here, or if not all of them, and move on. So does anybody have Allison, I see your hand up. What do you feel?
I won't go into my depth. It's not what I feel, it's what I think. Can't touch. Building regulate, I wouldn't break it down into 5 if we were going to do it. I would lump 1, 2, and 5 together and just break out 3 and 4. But I'm quite happy to try and have a go at it as is, because we didn't really get a lot of comments on specific things other than the home occupation and a little bit on domestic agriculture. So,
That's a good point. Unless somebody wants to shut it down now, because there's no point in going through it. If everybody's just willing to give this a bit of a shot here and see if we can't make something work. Michael?
Yes, I would favor, if there is something that is not contentious, quite straightforward, and genuinely answers to the question of housekeeping, if we could get those off the table, I for one would be happy to do that. if that's sort of the wish of everybody here, so we could move on and get those aspects behind us.
Okay, I think there's a general feeling here that we're going to move on. So let's just move. That's number one. And we've decided you don't need anything in here. So we're going to move on to automotive repair. And back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is what I presented at the end of the public hearing, just that, and continue to be true through the public hearing with all the comments, is that by far the majority of comments received were on this section of automobile repair within the home occupation regulation. And so at that point, and continue to see sort of three options for council, and I'd go into more detail on sort of the components of it, but at big picture, options for council would be to leave bylaw 528 unchanged. So this would add that one vehicle per month to the automobile repair as a home occupation regulation and continue to restrict the hobby use. Or council could amend it to permit that hobby use that we received many comments on, but restrict the automobile repair as a home occupation. Or three is then to amend bylaw 528 to permit the hobby use and the automobile repair use.
Okay.
But so when in the report itself, I sort of broke it down into 2A, B, and C. So A being automobile repair as a home occupation, saying this is probably what we received, one of the larger number of comments on. And this was the proposed restriction to limit automobile repair to one motor vehicle per calendar month. So what I put forward as the motion here is if council wants to remove that proposed restriction, is to make the motion to amend section 3.11 of the bylaw to remove the restriction limiting automobile repair to one motor vehicle per calendar month. Like the report's broken down into A, B, and C, and I don't know if you want to stop at A to discuss to move on to B, or if you want to sort of cover all three of those.
Let's just see what the comments. I see we've got lots of comments already, so let's just leave it there, Daniel.
Okay.
Now, I'm actually in favor of number 2 here, because I think the hobbyists were thinking they were going to be restricted, and I don't think they should be restricted as a home occupation. Does that mean that that the existing one on the Island House Sound can only do one car per month?
Any existing businesses that are lawfully operating, such as House Sound, could continue to operate as an existing non-conforming use.
Okay, thank you. That's good clarity there. I'm going to take him from the top. Allison, then Dave.
Yeah, I guess to me, first of all, just a little bit of history, because I was there when we did the original land use bylaw in 2002, and I had a chat with former councillor Peter Frenton as to his memory of the subject. We did not intend to allow automobile repair in the form of many cars per day and the traditional automobile repair type of operation as a home occupation when we did the original bylaw 57. Our intent was to allow the hobbyist and the car collector, and there were a number of people on the island that would get a car and fix it up, because that kept them busy. They were retired, they had nothing better to do, and it was fun and they enjoyed it, and they would fix it up and then they would sell it. And that, of course, by selling it, you are earning income, and that makes it technically a home occupation. So that's why the words home occupation were in there, but we had no intent of allowing a full-fledged automobile repair shop or somebody, doing oil changes and all that stuff for a whole raft of the general public to be a home occupation. So that given, I guess to me, I think we've got to decide, is automobile repair as a business something we want to authorize as a home occupation? And then we can deal with the nuances of Daniel's various motions. And to me, that the answer to that question is no. And I understand there was, a loophole in the wording, and so the current people that are providing the business on Adams Road, they will not have to stop that business because they're grandfathered. They were allowed to run the business when, because of the, mess up in the wording of bylaw 57. So as long as they stay there and operate it there, they're fine.
Okay, so you're in favor of number 2 also then, Allison?
I don't know what you mean by two, Gary. We've got two.
Well, it's
A.
just, it says in general, staff see three options for council's consideration, and do you see where I am there on page 4?
Page 4 of 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, I'm
Number
not sure that
two.
it's the three options I see. I guess option 2, sub 2 little i's, is permit the
Yeah.
hobby use but continue to restrict automobile repair. But I don't know if that solves the problem of the one person who would want to get an old car and tinker with it, play around with it for a year or a year and a half, and then sell it. Because he's
Well, I
now
guess-
got doing something on his lot that allows him to earn income.
Yeah, but Allison, we all work on our cars and then sell them.
Yeah, but it's not your personal car. He's driving other cars. He's just gone to auction and picked up a $500 old MGB, and now he's working on it, and now he turns around and sells it for $5.
I
So
think
he-
he should be able to do that. I don't have a problem. with
Yeah,
that.
well, that's why we put the word home occupation in there. So and I think that's maybe the sort of thing that Brad Hawthorne was getting at in his thing. So to me, I think the first resolution we need to decide on isn't any of the ones Daniel's got there. Do we want to see a full-fledged automobile repair service being run as a home occupation? Yes or no?
If it's restricted, yes, I
No.
don't care.
Being
But
a
I
full-
don't want to see it unrestricted.
Okay, well, I don't want to see a full-fledged automobile repair service being run as a home occupation.
Okay, well,
I don't
nobody's
think
gonna,
that's the sort of thing we were considering with home occupation.
I don't think anybody's gonna run a home occupation and just have one car a month. Because that's what the restriction is.
Yeah, and that's why we put it in there.
Yeah, well, I think that's good. I think House Sound was operating like that, and I think he should be grandfathered. And I think that the hobbyists should be able to do whatever they want. That's my feeling. And I'm gonna move on
I
to,
think we're agreeing, but I guess,
yeah.
so leave bylaw 528 as is for the,
Yeah. Except for get rid of the hobby.
but trying to do something to allow the hobbyists, and how you allow the single person who wants to just fix up an old MGB and turn around and sell it.
I don't think anybody's gonna bust them for that. We can't, there's a lot of different circumstances.
Okay, you and I are
Go ahead.
debating. Let's let a few other people have a chance.
Thank you. Sue Ellen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm with Allison on this one. I don't think automobile repair should be a home occupation because of the business. Perhaps some business owners run it very well, but there may be other business operators who, for whatever reason, do have a spill, for example. And so much of the island is watersheds, and we're concerned about nature, and we're concerned about drinking water and environmental safety. And so I don't think automobile repair should be allowed as a home occupation. I think if people want that, they should come and apply for a rezoning and persuade the council of the day why it's going to work and why it's needed and how it could be good. I wondered if I could ask Daniel a question about electric vehicles, because I think these bylaws last a long time, and we're moving into a time of more electric vehicles, including scooters and trikes and bicycles. And I'm not sure about the definition of automobile here. And secondly, wondering if there should be a change to the definition to allow for electrics. And secondly, I'm not sure if anybody here, Daniel, whether you've got information about what the hazards of electric vehicle repair might be as a home occupation.
Those are great questions that I don't think I know the answer to enough, other than to say that like the land use bylaw would treat them the same. So you're repairing, combustion engine motor vehicle or electric
Okay,
motor vehicle.
thank you. Thank you, but
Oh.
otherwise I'm with Allison, and I don't think it should be a home occupation. I think it should be uh, careful rules around how you do it safely so that everybody who operates that business through time is bound by the same rules, and that it's considered in an island-wide context before it goes ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. Good points. Maureen?
Thank you, Miranda. I would like the bylaw to remain as is. So not adding the restriction of one motor vehicle per month. And in part because I think that this is a larger issue, and that became really obvious in terms of the community feedback on this. I don't think restricting to one motor vehicle per calendar month addresses the concerns that we have. And I think that in the context of this bylaw, it may make more sense to simply leave the existing bylaw as is and address this at a later time.
So that means severing this particular section out and going at it as a separate review.
So
No, it doesn't. It simply means that it means that we do what this says. We direct staff to amend the bylaw to remove the restriction limiting automobile repair and leave things as status quo until we have an opportunity to revisit.
Okay, what about hobby use?
And I'm not considering that at this point. I'm going through 2A, 2B, 2C.
Okay, all right.
Is there anybody else on the speakers list?
I don't see anybody. Go ahead, Allison.
So, oh, David just stuck his hand up and he hasn't had a chance to speak.
Okay,
yet.
David, go ahead.
Yes, I want to ask Maureen what she means. Because I agree that the restriction of one vehicle per month is a bit of a strange restriction. It doesn't deal with it, the issues that Sue Ellen was raising, for instance, about contaminants and things of that sort. But so, Maureen, when would we be addressing these other issues? I'm not quite sure what you were getting at.
Yeah, I think just simply at a later time.
So you're suggesting we leave bylaw 57 wording in home occupation as it is right now?
By getting, in other words, agreeing with 2A, by removing the restriction limiting to one motor vehicle per calendar month, because that was the addition that we've just made. Right, Maureen? Yeah.
So
Run that by me again.
Yeah, so
So
Maureen.
by removing that restriction, maybe Daniel needs to answer this. It means bylaw 57 stays the way it is written and passed and adopted right now.
I see.
Yeah.
No, I don't want the restriction in the bylaw.
Okay, but that means that somebody else can go and open up a home occupation and run a full service station operation in their house. One of the new lots down by the water treatment plant, for example.
May I try here?
Yeah, please.
Thanks, Liam. Go ahead.
Councillor Nicholson, perhaps what I thought I heard you say was that the proposed like bylaw 528, with the original proposal on the table, saw that whether you're a hobbyist or a home occupation, that you're limited to a maximum of one vehicle per calendar year. And that's what was originally being presented from staff.
No.
Hearing all of the complaints from the public and suggestions, what we've done is staff has brought forward an alternative, and that's what is being presented here. Is an alternative could be, one vehicle per calendar month. No, have I got that wrong there?
Yeah.
no, sorry, Liam. So this motion would be to remove, like the bylaw 528 currently restricts it to 1 per calendar month.
Okay, but
Um,
what's the difference between 1 per calendar month and 1 per calendar year that we've got in the bylaw 57 right now?
So bylaw 57 has 1 on the property at a time, but not a cumulative total.
Okay,
I think I'm not sure whether we're
I want to,
amending the draft or we're amending
Well, we're amending the draft.
So
the
any-
current adopted version. And if somebody could clarify that, that would help.
Yeah. Sure.
You
So
could
any
add-
motions made by council this time would be amendments to bylaw 528. So the bylaw that's received 2 readings and gone to public hearing. So it does get confusing because you're not amending bylaw 57 through motions at this meeting, but you're amending the bylaw 528 that went to the public hearing.
Right.
So the
Thank-
motion that I have up on the screen essentially is to say to amend the bylaw 528 to remove the part that it would add to bylaw 57.
Thank
So,
you. That's what I
As
thought.
I understood
Yeah.
what Maureen, what Councillor Nicholson was speaking to was to speaking to this motion to remove the restriction, to leave the current status as it is right now in bylaw 57.
is there any way we can see what bylaw 57 would look is with the amendment that was proposed in bylaw 528? So we know, and then we know what we're removing.
It's on page 4 of the staff report. I have that on my screen right now. If we want
A
to
minute,
look at that.
page 4 of the staff report.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No, I want to see what bylaw 57 as amended by the original bylaw unchanged 528 would look like. Page
Sorry, say that
4.
again.
If we passed bylaw 528 as written right now, what would this section look like?
That's on page 4, I believe.
Page 4 of 12?
At the top.
It says bylaw number 528, this regulation to read, that part?
Yeah.
Okay, salvage yard or automobile repair, except that one motor vehicle, licensed or not, may be maintained on a property for the purpose of repair. And a maximum of one motor vehicle maintained properly over the course of a calendar month.
So if I could just interject. So what we're being asked to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, because God knows I may be, what we're being asked to do is to consider whether we want to make a change to one vehicle per month as opposed to one vehicle per year. And I guess my basic point is that whether we stay with the status quo or whether we go with the revision, it's not solving the problem.
Right.
And
Councillor Nick.
yeah, please, Daniel.
Yeah. So the current regulation reads that you can have one motor vehicle at a time as a home occupation. It can't last there more than 1 year, but there's no cumulative. So you could run an automobile repair with just one vehicle on your property at a time, but multiple vehicles throughout the day.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
How about the hobbyists? I'd like to protect the hobbyists here. That's why I went in for.
I really would like to consider them as a separate issue and just focus on the commercial in this first one, Mayor.
Okay, that's fine.
So I believe everybody can see the shared screen that I've put up. Is that correct? So at the top here is the existing bylaw 57 language, which allows for one vehicle to be repaired on site at a time, which means that multiple vehicles can be done in a day.
Yeah,
You can
but
only
our
have one-
intention when
yeah.
we wrote that was that you
That's
could
right.
only have one vehicle on site
Yeah.
per year.
So then Daniel drafted bylaw 528 to have that limitation be very crystal clear, and it's underlined here. A maximum of one motor vehicle may be maintained on a property over the course of a calendar. Oh, sorry, over a calendar month.
Yeah.
And,
this
and
is
the
for the
lawyers
one.
confirmed that that plugs the loophole.
Yes.
Okay,
And
so
so
I'd like
that,
to leave that in there.
so, but then the question is being raised as to, Alice, Councillor Morris, you raised that, do we even want to consider
Yes.
home occupation? A lot of the feedback from the community was they didn't like that restriction on a home occupation. And so the staff report is suggesting here that we could remove that restriction of 1 month.
But was part of that support from the community because they didn't understand that the existing business could stay and continue operating as long as it stayed in that particular place?
I don't know if all businesses can or just the existing one.
No, the existing one is grandfathered because of the loophole in the wording
Correct.
that we did the bylaw in the first place.
Correct.
But do we want to see another one pop
Daniel,
up
Daniel,
somewhere else?
are you able to speak to that nuance? I don't know. I don't know that I know that.
I don't know enough of the letters we received.
They were, very much in support of the existing operators and the existing business.
Agreed.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I would say too, Councillor Morris, that the existing operators are aware of the nuance and are not supportive of the proposed change, despite
That's
the
right,
fact that
because if they sold their property, they couldn't move their business to another property.
Correct.
Yeah. They would have to go through a proper commercial rezoning.
Correct.
If they sold their house and moved somewhere else.
So I guess, there's three pieces to this. It's, do we want to authorize automobile repair as a home occupation with or without restrictions?
Well, the only reason Daniel's put the restriction in there is to make it not a not a viable business.
Oh, pretty much, yeah. I would, so, yeah.
Yeah.
The 1 month allows for those folks that might do it more like a legitimate hobby type thing.
Yeah.
And or that they might take on like a very complex project, and perhaps it's still financially viable for them to only do one a month, but it's a quite an expensive project. But yeah, it would deter automobile repair shops from popping up in neighborhoods where the communities wouldn't otherwise want them, and that's the goal.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know. We don't seem to be getting
Gary?
there unless there's a breakthrough. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, just a couple questions for Daniel. Daniel, I think one of the hobbyist concerns was, let's say I have 2 or 3 old MGBs and I'm piecing together parts from one to the other. Is within this bylaw, would there be a restriction on that? And I'm talking sort of the number of vehicles instead of one in, one out type of deal. And the other thing is, does this impact anybody that's working on motorbikes at all as well?
Are motorbikes motor vehicles?
Yes.
So I think, Rob, when the report goes on to 2B, where it's as a hobby, if council adopted that motion, that would direct staff to remove the reference to hobby.
Okay.
So in that case, this home occupation regulation wouldn't be regulating people who do it as a hobby and not as a business.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, my concern is I know quite a lot of, for instance, motorbike guys that have 4 or 5 bikes that they're working on all the time, right? And I wouldn't want to restrict those hobbyists. But as with Allison and a number of other councillors, I wouldn't want a full-on auto body shop moving next door to me that's working on cars all day long. I could see that being a problem. Okay, thanks for the clarification.
So So you're not getting much help here, Daniel.
So may I make a suggestion that we
Move on.
yeah, because we're also not bringing this forward for third reading today. This is good discussion, and so we could move beyond this section to the other sections, and we can always come back to this.
I think that's a good idea. Let's just see how the time goes, but let's move on to, because this is a very contentious issue, and you can see why, because we at council, we can't even seem to come to consensus on any parts of it. So let's move on to number 3, which is retaining walls.
No, I thought we
Oh,
were.
I think we would.
Finish off automobiles.
The hobby one we need to do.
Yeah, there's still the hobby and the
B for Bob section, page
Well,
5.
We don't seem to be able to agree on these anyway, but go ahead, you can try. Okay, automobile repair as a hobby. I would like,
Sorry, I was trying to get my screen back going, but I feel like I've heard sort of general consensus on that 2B, that council directs staff to amend section 3.11 to remove the reference to hobby. So if that's the case, then maybe council could move that to proceed. It seems like that has consensus.
That's why I put my hand up. Yeah, I agree.
Yes, thank
And
you.
then that
Would you
means
like me to
we're
move
not-
it?
sure, Sue Ellen, thank you.
That
we're not
council directs
restricting
staff,
Go
that
ahead.
what it means.
who,
Sue
If
Ellen?
we remove the section of hobbyists, it just means hobbies not being picked up under the home occupation section.
so I would like to
Totally
move,
different.
Totally different. Okay.
may I move the motion?
Yes, please.
That council directs staff to amend section 3.11 of bylaw number 528, 2020 to remove the reference to hobby.
Okay, I'll second that. Any further discussion here? No hands, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's great. And opposed, anybody? Okay, thank you. All right, that was easy. Okay, let's move on to vehicle repair garage regulations.
Okay, and maybe I'll go back to my screen.
Okay.
Okay. So I had a series, we received a number of comments on sort of the vehicle repair garage regulations. And I had put 3 different motions for council to consider. I mean, for the interest of time, council could move the third one. So one of the comments we received from Brad Hawthorne was quite extensive, had a number of sort of minor changes to do with the vehicle repair garage regulations. The second one being the definition of derelict vehicles. So some people were concerned that the current definition for derelict vehicle would capture people wanting to store multiple vehicles on their property. So bylaw 528 doesn't amend the definition of derelict vehicles, but it was a comment that we had received. And then as I read it, I'm like the first motion, if you move the third motion in terms of reviewing comments from Brad Hawthorne, incorporating some of those amendments, that would capture the first one as well. Which was about a specific concern that how we currently, or how bylaw 528 proposes to regulate vehicle repair garage would inadvertently capture people using it as a hobby, which is not how staff read the bylaw, but the 2CI is sort of a clarification.
Okay, and then you could just incorporate those amendments into 528.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm in favor of that. How's everybody else feel, Sue Ellen?
I'd like to move that council directs staff to review comment from Brad Hawthorne dated July 12th, 2021, and incorporate amendments in bylaw number 528.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Second that one.
Okay, who's the second there, David?
I did, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And any further discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
Are these not 3 separate potential motions? Daniel?
Yes, I had drafted them as 3, but as I read them now and go like, okay, I think the first one would be captured by the third one. It's sort of
And the
like a
second one?
specific amendment that would be, I would include that in my review of the comments.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I'm just intending to capture the first one and the third one.
Yeah.
In the third one.
Correct. I think that's what Daniel's saying here, that the third one will capture both the first and second.
Oh, not the second
Sorry.
one.
No, not
The
second,
first and
third.
the third. Yeah.
First and
I
third,
think
yeah.
for the sake of clarity, you might want to vote on each.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, well, let's finish up with this one then. And I'll ask a question. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, opposed, anybody? All right, thank you. And okay, so let's the derelict vehicles. The council directs staff to review the current definition of derelict vehicles and include an amended definition in bylaw number 528.
Good.
Anybody have any comments there?
Yeah, could I just ask Daniel, and forgive me for being redundant, but can you just clarify why this is important?
Yes, so a current definition of derelict vehicle, it means a vehicle that is not drivable or has been unlicensed for 12 months. And our land use bylaw restricts the total number of derelict vehicles that may be on a property. So through the comments we received on hobby use of automobile repair, was people concerned that they had a collection of cars on their property that they were storing that were not licensed. And so they would be captured as a definition for derelict vehicles.
Which is not the intent, right? Correct?
I mean, I can't, I guess, speak to where the definition for derelict vehicles come from. I mean, typically land use bylaws have the definition to sort of avoid unsightly premises. And
Well, correct. Yeah, that would be the other part of it, wouldn't it? Eh? And maybe
yeah.
something that can be, maybe that's something that can be put in the definition or something, right? Sue Ellen, and then Allison.
I like the idea of that previous motion, and I cannot see anymore, and I'm sorry, if people can refer more to page numbers, I might be able to find it. But I like the idea of asking staff to review the definition of derelict vessels because, well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, our household has been the kind of household that might have a vehicle unlicensed for a year as we save up our pennies to have some major work done or decide what to do with it or to give it back to our family member or whatever. And so I can see that the 1 year might be too restrictive. Secondly, I would like to have staff to review it because my experience with other Gulf Islands, this is an issue because it's expensive to haul them away. And they tend to become expensive bylaw issues on different islands. And I just think it would need some attention. So I'd like to move that second motion too.
I'll second that.
Okay. Further discussion on that?
I just wanted to say I've got my hand up.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, go ahead.
Is having a couple of friends who work on cars. They don't license them because they're not driving them.
No.
And they might only put a license on them for a special occasion, but they work on them and they're in a garage and whatever. So I can't see there's a problem if somebody's a hobbyist and repairing old cars. It's worth it as long as we can pick up the unsightly one that's left to rot in the, and I guess that gets picked up under unsightly premises maybe.
Well, that's what I said. I think it should be part of the amended definition in bylaw 528 of derelict vehicles. I mean, if somebody's actually using them, but they aren't licensed, it doesn't mean they're bad. Sue Ellen?
Yeah, just one more thought.
Yeah.
Is that unsightly premises might not pick them up because sometimes they're out in the back behind the trees and nobody goes by them, so you don't know that there's 30 vehicles leaking their fluids and they're, gradually decaying in the watershed back there. So unsightly premises might not capture it all, and that's why I would like staff to have a look at it.
Good point. So where are we at there?
I believe I moved it and somebody
I
seconded it.
seconded it.
Yeah, you seconded it. Okay,
And
so
I don't know where it is, so I can't read it out again. Where
Okay,
would I
any
look?
fur-
Which page?
Michael, I've got your hand up there.
You're on mute, Councillor Kale.
Muted, Michael. There you go.
Our conversation has suffered from two issues. Firstly, the length of time from the last council meeting. And secondly, the complexity of this issue. I could happily support this if this review enabled Daniel to look at this in the context of what we've agreed to already, and probably give us a chance to come back. And if it's causing any other unintended consequences or problems, we still have the time to deal with the issue as well. Because I'd like to know as we move forward, I've got a strange feeling that this conversation, when it's done and dusted and we've approved all these issues, we then turn around and said, wow, we've just approved certain things here, or we've moved it forward, but have we moved it forward cohesively so it makes sense? So Daniel, I would ask you, if we direct you to review the current definition of derelict vehicles, is this helpful generally to the motions that we've passed already? Is this assisting you in the drafting of this for when it all comes together?
I believe Daniel's freezing up. I think he's got
He's
it.
froze.
You messaged me and said-
Because if it is, Gary, I mean, in the collaboratively trying to move this ahead, I'm fine. If not, quite honestly, I'd have pulled the whole thing and sat it down side by side and just look what we're doing in entirety. Because I got to tell you, I've been listening to this and somewhat uncomfortable by the way we're staging up these approvals, hoping at the end we come to something which is cohesive. One complements the other in terms of what we've approved and makes sense.
So I think Daniel's back on. If you want to ask him again your question,
Daniel, if we direct you to review the current definition of derelict vehicles, is this helpful to what we've approved already? And this works to tying together the motions that we've passed to date.
Yes, I believe so, especially in concert with the earlier motion from Sue Ellen.
Okay, then obviously then if the whole thing comes together and a package that we can all say that makes sense and that the community can live with, then fair enough. I just hope we've got some safety net here just in case of some unintended consequences in what we've agreed this evening.
good point, Michael. Maureen?
Thank you. I'm just thinking about what direction council has provided to Daniel regarding revising the derelict vehicles definition. And what I've heard is that the length of time that a vehicle has been left unlicensed is significant. Well, I'm curious about what else Daniel heard or other councillors heard that will help inform the revision of the definition. So question first for Daniel.
I think when I read the comments from people, I was trying to think of ways that it wouldn't capture people who sort of have car collections where they're not licensing them because they're working on them. And so maybe it's strengthening the drivable. So it's like we have a drivable car that you haven't licensed, or it would be that they are, maybe they're within a garage. That's not a derelict vehicle, or there's something that still captures the sense of, you're not having cars rot slowly, like decomposing into the ground. You're not burying them under leaves or something, but that if you've got maintained cars that are on your property, that you just don't license because they're collector cars or whatever, that's not what we mean by derelict vehicles.
I think the definition has to be
Thank
refined.
you.
Sue Ellen, you okay? Or Maureen, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I am. Thank you.
Okay, last one, Allison, and then I'll ask a question.
Well, no, that's fine. I mean, I think Daniel picked it up. I mean, there are people with car collections and
Yeah,
they just store them in a garage. You watch American Pickers and things like that, and Barrett Jackson auctions, and there's people that have garages full of cars
correct.
instead of shoes.
Well, that was my point, that the hobbyists are a different breed altogether. So I don't see any further questions, so I will ask all in favor.
Aye.
Okay, and opposed? No, I think we're good. So Ellen, your hand's up there. Okay,
Nope.
we'll move on to retaining walls. We'll see how it goes.
Are we not going to deal with that top one? Oh, no, it's captured, or are we going to, Maureen suggested that we deal with it to make sure that it's all clear?
Was dealt with.
Which one?
2C1.
That was included in the Brad Hawthorne comment.
Yeah.
It wasn't included explicitly.
Oh.
I think it should be
Oh, okay.
moved and supported.
All right.
Which page do I look at to find this? I'm sorry, I can't.
5, bottom of 5.
Thank you.
And so, all right, so the motion is the council directs staff to amend 3.13 of bylaw number 528/2020 to read 3.57, where permitted in a zone, a service station, vehicle repair garage, or automobile repair as a home occupation use shall comply with the following regulations. So they've added home occupation as a home occupation, I guess, eh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move that second.
Second.
Thank you, Allison. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, well, that's certainly gives Daniel something to work on there, and it's taken a little bit of time. So let's see how we do down here on retaining walls. Back to you, Daniel.
Thank you. I'll just put this up because I think it's just helpful to explain a bit. So currently in bylaw 57, we permit retaining walls to be 2.5 meters within a setback. So that's setbacks to lot lines, setbacks to the sea and water courses, and setbacks to highways.
And a retaining wall is defined as?
So bylaw 528 would include a definition for retaining wall.
So it's something that retains dirt. It's not just a wall that sticks up in the air.
Correct. It's not a freestanding, but it's retaining something.
Thank you.
Bylaw 528 would limit that setback to 1.5, or limit the height that's allowed within setbacks to 1.5 meters within lot lines setback, so front, rear, side. And then it wouldn't permit them within environmental or visibility setback. So in essence, that would mean a 0.6 meter, so a 2-foot retaining wall is permitted. And we received a few letters concerned about that, especially the impact of setbacks to highways. And so what staff are recommending is amendment to allow retaining walls of up to 1.5 meters to be within the setbacks to highways.
Okay.
And so that's the motion.
So 1.5 meters is
It's about 5 feet.
5 feet. And that won't be a visibility issue if it's at a corner?
It could be. We do have a separate regulation that it wouldn't apply to. That's about corner radius and like any structure within a corner radius.
Okay.
But specifically, it's that highway to setbacks to highways is just when looking on Bowen and how many places are adjacent to a highway that it's a 4.6 meter setback and could be quite limiting in terms of site development.
But, and then somebody could find themselves with a retaining wall right on the property line between themselves and the neighbor could find themselves with a 5-foot rock wall.
So
That is
it's
a nice sloping bank.
yeah, so it could be 1.5 meters up to the property line.
5 feet, yeah.
And what is it before?
2.5 meters.
So this is better.
Yes.
Much better,
So
yeah. That's it, that's 8
Yeah.
feet, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, any comments on this one?
I've got my hand up, Gary. I read Daniel's
Sorry, David.
report,
Yeah.
and I felt his reasoning was good, and so I support this.
Okay, somebody want to read it?
Sure, I'll read it.
Thank you.
Retaining walls. The council directs staff to amend section 3.9D of bylaw 528 to read, inserting section 3.28 and renumbering subsequent section to read as follows. 3.29, retaining walls not exceeding a height of 1.5 meters may be sited on any portion of a lot subject to setbacks to the sea, lakes, watercourses, and wetlands.
Second that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Down here. Is this the same as page 6 of 12?
Yeah.
Because that one includes the word highways, and the one that you just moved does not include the word highways.
That was the whole point, Sue Ellen, is removing the highways part of it.
Yeah.
That was the
Thank
change.
you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm just a bit confused with this whole thing, so thank you for bearing with me.
All right, any further discussion? I'll ask a question. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, well done.
So the next topic would be Cape Roger Curtis Development Permit Area. So Bowen's 1996 OCP had a development permit area for Cape Roger Curtis that was removed when we adopted our current OCP in 2011. So the development permit guidelines for the Cape Roger Curtis area in our land use bylaw are not in effect. And so staff had proposed removing those guidelines from the land use bylaw. As in essence, as I consider it a piece of housekeeping for clarity, so people aren't confused why they're guidelines that don't have effect. We received several comments wishing to retain the guidelines and then wishing to instead to have a process to amend the official community plan to create a development permit area for the Cape Roger Curtis area. So if council wanted to proceed with that, they would make the motion that's shown to amend bylaw 528 to remove section 3.60, which is that clause that would delete the Cape Roger Curtis development permit areas. And then I would recommend, if council wants to go in that direction, that it's not enough to just remove that, but would need to then make a staff motion to amend the official community plan to create a development permit area or to designate a development permit area to make those guidelines have effect. And I see hands up, but that's all I had to present.
Did we lose our mayor?
We lost Gary?
It appears so.
What do we do? I've still got my power.
I'll text him to see if,
Who is acting mayor? In the absence of,
I believe it's you, Maureen. I just looked one, hang on, I have it right in front of me, actually. Sorry. One sec.
Is it me or is it Maureen? It's, or who's, or Michael maybe.
Oh, no, wait. Oh, we're still in September. Sorry, it's Councillor Kale. Here comes Gary, the mayor though, right now.
Gary's coming back.
We lost Michael too.
No,
Oh, there he is.
There.
You're off the hook, Michael.
Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome back,
everybody.
Gary.
Well, yeah, I just, my screen just totally froze and disappeared on me, sorry. Okay, so where was I there?
Daniel's just done his little presentation.
Okay,
On
yeah,
number 4.
We got
Cape
Yes.
Rogers.
yeah, okay, well, I missed that, but, so what's the general feeling in there, Allison? You got your hand up?
I believe we should leave bylaw 528 as is. I went and looked at the guidelines that are in there. I mean, the roads have already been put in. There's covenants on the creeks. We've got DP areas for streams and water courses and the covenant all along the pusher. So I think there's no point in having it there. I think we should leave 528 the way it is.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Any other comments? Sue
There's
Ellen?
3 hands up. Yeah, sure. I'm the other way. I think we should put the development permit area guidelines back in. And the reason is because they're not in effect, to me, doesn't mean much because there's lots of things in the official community plan that are not in effect. And right now, those development area permit area guidelines are the only ecosystem protection guidelines that exist. And yet we've got our official community plan was updated to have all this for environmentally sensitive areas. And personally, I think we should be adding ecosystem protection and environmentally sensitive ecosystem protection, not reducing it. And if we remove and by leaving the guidelines in, we leave the continuity for us in the future or a future council to be able to see what happened and not lose that work and intent of the earlier development permit guidelines that give something for people to work from and allow a more holistic or comprehensive look at ecosystem protection and protection of environmentally sensitive areas, which could even help us with industrial logging and those kinds of things, because these would also run up into Crown land. They may not have full force, but they wouldn't communicate the community's intent. So I propose to keep the Cape Roger Curtis development permit area guidelines intact, put them back in, is what I'd like to see.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. David?
Yes, I agree with Sue Ellen, and that was my position on this, and those are similar to the things that I would have said. I think that it would be appropriate for Cape Roger Curtis.
Okay, thank you. Maureen?
I'm sorry, I'm just not following some of this. Allison, Sue Ellen, are you agreeing with each other?
No.
Say it again then, Allison, so I can understand what your position is.
If Daniel said, right now, we don't have a development permit area designated for Cape Roger Curtis. We've got some guidelines in a land use bylaw that were put in years and years ago because it was an undeveloped area. And we had a development permit area in the 1996 OCP. When the 2011 OCP was done, of which Sue Ellen was chair of the committee, the designation for a development permit area for Cape Roger Curtis was removed. So there was no designated area. In 7.1, not as a DP area, as an environmentally sensitive area for the whole island. If you look at the guidelines in 7.1, they talk about banks on the sides of roads and road widths, and the roads are all in, they're developed. There's the covenants along the shore, the creeks have been covenanted. We've got a watershed and stream development permit area, which picks up all the streams there. So there's really nothing in 7.1 that hasn't already been dealt with or covered off by something else. And so it's a very confusing thing and it serves no purpose.
Okay, so from Daniel's report though, it says that there is no force to the development permit guidelines that some of us believe apply to
Because they
Cape
don't
Roger
apply,
Curtis.
there's no development permit area designated anywhere.
It's not in the OCP.
For clarity though, if I may,
Yes.
and Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, the DPAs around our aquifer, watershed, water stream protection apply.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the area and it's in isolation, Cape Roger Curtis, that doesn't have a specified development permit area. But the broader island-wide DPA rules all apply.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are environmentally sensitive development permit areas in the OCP. They just don't
Right,
have guidelines yet.
So
Maureen, are you done? Oh, sorry.
no, I'm not.
Okay.
So the recommendations in, the potential recommendations in Daniel's report to remove and then to actually proceed with an amendment to the OCP.
No.
Well, that's what it
So
says.
what?
If we leave 7.1 in to make it effective, we're going to have to do an amendment to the OCP.
That
Correct.
was what I was about to say, and that's what Daniel's recommendation or proposed recommendation.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Bylaws.
thought you were talking about 528 recommendation. No, okay. I don't know why I do that.
So if we were to proceed, as the recommendation suggests, to create a DPA for Cape Roger Curtis to protect the natural environment, its ecosystems, and biological diversity, would that give greater strength to the effort towards protection? That's a question for Daniel.
We just lost Daniel. But yes, Councillor Nicholson, it would be more specific to that area. And so it would likely have greater and unique protection requirements.
And I think Daniel's coming back, but he's just frozen again. But I can read in the current OCP, it also includes objectives 68 and 40. I think it's 40, yeah. So which policy 152 continue to promote the public interest in the development of the Cape Roger Curtis lands, notwithstanding that the Cape Roger Curtis has a approved subdivision plan, the municipality continues to promote the public interest by encouraging the development of the site to conserve the majority of the coastline for ecosystem protection, no adverse ecological effects, protect environmentally sensitive areas and rare species. Those kinds of things are in the text. But they're not a separate development permit area. So if we choose to do both those things that are in number 4 on page 8 of 12, then I could support that.
Just one last point, and then I'll stop asking questions, I think. Can we move that the removal of section 3.60 be subject to the amendment of the OCP to create a DPA? Can we link the two of them together so that we'll only remove it if we've got the DPA in place? Is that possible?
Isn't it one motion and with an and?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can revise the motion. And what I'm asking is whether you can make one subject to the other.
Daniel?
I'm sorry, Councillor Nicholson, I missed the start of your question.
Yeah. The proposed motions are that council directs staff to amend bylaw 528 by removing section 3.60, etc. My question, Daniel, is can we make the removal of section 3.60 subject to the creation of a DPA permit area for Cape Roger Curtis?
Then we wouldn't want to remove.
I guess
3.6.
where I struggle is like, okay, if we want to, so removing section 2.0 would mean to leave the Cape Roger Curtis development permit guidelines in and to start a process to amend the OCP to create a development permit area. In general, I'd say like to amend the OCP to create a development permit area is it is a large project and large undertaking that's not straightforward, and it doesn't fit within the timeline of 528, like in terms of this bylaw. So it's one that, you know, even though it may be viewed as, well, we're just putting in what was there in 96, I would say it's an amendment to the OCP to create a development permit area that wasn't envisioned in 2011. It would go under the full consultation of an OCP amendment to create a development permit area.
So we would pull it out of this amendment altogether then of this bylaw 528.
Well, so what bylaw 528 does is it removes the guideline 7.1. Council independently could say, after this meeting or whenever, say, okay, make it a priority to do a development permit area for Cape Project Curtis. And you could do that regardless if you're deleting, the existing guidelines that are in 7.1.
Yeah.
Most of which are already been fulfilled.
Thank you, Daniel.
Okay. Anybody else on this? Allison, any comments?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, I just have a quick question because I saw sort of a grimace from Liam and Daniel about this OCP amendment in terms of the work involved. Daniel?
I thought my poker face was better than that. I'm sorry to, I'm trying not to influence the decision, but it is true that it is a very large undertaking. But it does, like, by removing it now, it doesn't preclude this council or future council to then go back and request that development permit area for the Cape be conducted. It doesn't necessarily have to start right away, but if or when it would be conducted, it is quite a large undertaking.
And I would think that an alternate approach for council that's probably more supported by our current OCP would be to actually do the environmentally sensitive area across Bowen rather than highlighting Cape Project Curtis. But given that was the direction the 2011 OCP said was, don't do it just for Cape Project Curtis, but we should have a development permit for the whole island.
Okay.
And that's supported in the OCP, which says, note, refer to section 3.4.6 for policy related to environmental protection. So sorry.
That's the part I started to read. Yeah.
But then.
And in part, those are.
General and ESA bylaws.
And those are in part being addressed by some of the DPA, island-wide DPAs that already exist, and other future work that's being advanced currently, like the hazardous areas DPA and other future work.
Actually, I think those are separate ones, and the OCP directs the community to develop those too. But anyway,
okay, yes, but they're linkages.
They do overlap some.
So
So
the issue here is we want to delete the development permit guidelines because they don't exist right now. So what would you like to see out of this, as far as Daniel, as far as going forward on this? And I guess it's a question of whether we want to amend the official community plan to create a development permit area, or do we wait and just do it as a sequence of events with the greater island in general?
So if council is satisfied with bylaw 528 that would remove the old guidelines, then you don't need to make any motion. You can just ask me to move on to the next section.
yes,
Go on to the next section.
yes, thank you.
Okay, but do you need that motion?
I don't need that motion. That's if council wants to see a different direction to leave the guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah.
But okay, some people want to see it.
Well, then they're going to have to make a motion, and then we'll go from there and vote on it.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Snow.
I move that council direct staff to add section 3.0 to add the old development.
They're already in there.
To 528.
Bylaw 528 removes the guidelines under 7.1. If you want them to stay there, then your motion has to read the council direct staff to amend bylaw 528 by removing section 3.60.
I would like to move that council direct staff to amend bylaw, that's right, 528, sorry, just got them mixed up, by removing section, oh God.
3.60.
And
Renumbering
Two.
sections.
to replace the development variance permit
No,
guidelines. Sorry, I can, now I've lost what 3.6 is.
Does that help, Sue Ellen? This was the motion that I had made. So 3.60 is just the section of bylaw 528 that would remove section 7.1.
Thank you. Yes, that can, oh, so I move that council direct staff to amend bylaw number 528 by removing section 3.60 and renumbering subsequent sections, and that council direct staff to begin the process to amend the official community plan to create a development permit area for Cape Roger Curtis. No, I'll just stop, actually. To protect, no, Curtis, to protect the natural environment, its ecosystems and biological diversity.
Okay, a second for that, please.
Second it.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Any further discussion on this? I think we're probably better off to wait until we do the island in general, and I don't know if this should be a special area. Any further discussion?
I want to make sure I know what I'm voting on here because I'm not certain.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to add myself to that list as well.
Yeah.
Why we would look
Yeah,
at
me
this in
too.
isolation and not the island as a whole, because it seems unduly cumbersome, given where Cape Roger Curtis is right now, which Councillor Morse has adequately explained, I think, in her comments.
Okay, Maureen, are you happy?
No.
Okay, well, what do you got? Ask Daniel.
Oh, okay. Just a real layperson's explanation of the impact of this motion. What does it do?
So this motion would leave that section 7.1, the development permit guidelines for Cape Roger Curtis, in the land use bylaw. They would continue to not have effect. So they would continue to be in there. There would continue to not be a development permit area for Cape Roger Curtis. This would then also direct staff to begin a process to do an official community plan amendment to designate Cape Roger Curtis as a development permit area, which would make the guidelines have effect, or as part of that process, staff would recommend amendments to the existing Cape Roger Curtis development permit guidelines if we felt like the current guidelines weren't appropriate for what was identified for a development permit area. So similar to the process we're doing now for hazardous areas, it would be a similar type project.
Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Okay, opposed?
Michael, are you voting?
Yes, sorry, yes, I can't agree to this. I thought, and I recognize I did this more as a gesture. No, I'm opposed to this as well. I don't like the direction this is heading particularly. I am opposed to the motion.
Okay, so we have councillors Kale, Morse, and Ander in opposition. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on here and see if we can't get something else done. I'm a domestic agriculture. Can you give us a quick one on that and what the problem is here? Daniel.
Yes. So domestic agriculture in the land use bylaw is the growing or rearing of any agriculture product for the personal use of the occupant of the lot. And this is especially relevant in the settlement residential zone, so where it doesn't otherwise permit agriculture. And staff have long interpreted this definition to require that there be a resident of the lot to be the occupant of the lot for who the agriculture product is for the benefit of. And so we've said it can't be done on a vacant lot, but there needs to be a dwelling on the lot to have a resident, an occupant of the lot to benefit from the domestic agriculture. It doesn't come up very often, and that's something, that staff are looking to enforce, but nevertheless, that's how we interpret it. So bylaw 528 would move domestic agriculture to be an accessory use, so that it's not listed as a principal use of a property, but as an accessory use. And we then received comments through the process of people who are concerned with this change, who said, either from one in particular, who said that, well, they own a vacant SR2, or they own a vacant lot that has domestic agriculture as a principal use. They don't have a dwelling on it, and they would like to continue to farm that lot. Yeah, and so when thinking how to address those concerns, it would, in my view, staff, so it would have to go beyond just removing the change of domestic agriculture, because if council said, we'll just change it back, leave it as a principal use, at that point, staff would still interpret the bylaw in the same way that we have, that it still requires a resident of the lot to occupy the lot and wouldn't be permitted as on a vacant lot. So the motion, if council wants to sort of address that concern, would be as well to amending bylaw 528 to amend the definition to allow owners who are non-occupants to conduct domestic agriculture. Staff would sort of have to caution or work through what that would mean, because that would limit, or that would sort of remove the limitation currently for agriculture on our smaller, more residential lots. So if if it was for the owner of a lot versus an occupant, could the owner be a corporation who, who benefits from the agriculture? And it's something we'd have to consider.
All right, comments, anybody? I think we keep it as it is. Allison?
Okay, so right now, 528 has an amendment to make domestic agriculture a accessory use. So that means you've got to have a house on it. There's no other principal uses that.
I mean, in the SR2 zone, I think it's stable kennel dwelling. So you'd have to have a principal use then to have an accessory use.
Yeah, okay. And I guess my concern is there's probably some lots around, I think, where somebody owns 2 lots and they've got a vacant lot next door. It's immediately adjacent to and treated as part of their own, the one property, but it's 2 distinct lots. And to me, it seems very unfair that they couldn't do domestic agriculture on that second lot that's immediately adjacent to the lot that has the house on it. So is there some way to change the definition so, if it's, so that it's then and down on the immediately adjacent lot or something that?
I mean, that could maybe work for the personal use of the occupant of the lot or adjacent lot.
And is domestic agriculture defined in, where's the definition gone?
Page 8 of 12, the bottom.
Yeah, for the personal use of the occupant of the lot, yeah. There's probably some people that are doing domestic agriculture that are selling the stuff at the Saturday market.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. So it's
good. Somebody's using it, yeah.
I have long had it in my head as like a project is reviewing domestic agriculture and for that exact purpose, but knowing that you'd have to be sort of, I guess, nuanced in it, so it doesn't lead to like it's not a chicken farm on a property with
No.
but it's yeah.
I wouldn't want pigs next door.
oh, come on, they're cute. Some people have them as cats.
David?
It's true.
Thank you, Gary. I mean, it just seems we want to encourage agriculture. We want to encourage people growing food on our island. We've got groups of folks who want to do that. It just seems to be strangely bureaucratic to have this rule in place that we got an empty lot. You have them in the city of Vancouver and people grow stuff on it. That we can't do that. So I mean, my understanding from your report, Daniel, is that we'd have to have a public hearing if we change this definition, which sounds, oh my goodness. It just seems that we put a box around ourselves with this definition and stopping things that we'd like to have happen. I agree that we don't want, some big farm with livestock in the middle of a residential area where the neighbors will get upset. But to be, growing food is pretty straightforward and easy, and we're trying to encourage it. So I would like this to be fixed, but I certainly worry about the amount of work involved. I guess I'd like a simpler solution somehow, Daniel.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Maureen and then Sue Ellen.
Thank you. So this change would trigger a public hearing, according to your report,
Yes.
Daniel. Would it be a public hearing? Would it have to be a public hearing of the whole bylaw? Or could there be a public hearing specifically on domestic agriculture? So I guess what I'm wondering is if we could not deal with the domestic agriculture element of bylaw 528 now, move through with the bylaw, and at a later date deal with the definitional issue and have a public hearing at that time, as well as a more substantive discussion of domestic agriculture ongoing.
Yeah, that's good.
I'd be
That's a good
interested
point.
in your comments.
Yeah, probably depending on the nature of how it's addressed, I might have to seek legal counsel just on what exactly would trigger. Because I think, for example, I think Councillor Morse's suggestion of changing the definition so that it's, personal use of the occupant of the lot or adjacent lot, I think that could be done without a public hearing. Whereas then the removing section 3.15 would be altering the use, because you'd be altering from accessory to principal, and that would be a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
And just a technicality, in your report, you're saying adopt motion number 4, you're meaning motion number 5, correct?
Yeah, I probably renumbered at some point.
Okay. So.
There's a couple of us with hands up.
Yeah, I see that. Go ahead, Sue Ellen, and then Maureen.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'm in support of agriculture and growing food and food security and fruit trees and even pigs, if they're not going to annoy the neighbors. I shouldn't have been so cruel to pigs or people that raise them. But I also don't want to derail the whole issue. However, we didn't hear from anybody who said on my adjacent lot. We heard from people who owned another lot in another location that they hadn't been able to build on yet, if I'm remembering correctly, and some other ones. So by adding the word adjacent in there, I'm not sure we would be fixing anything that people commented on. And I don't know we'd be solving any problem by saying that word adjacent, unless there's something I missed. So I'm not sure what to suggest here, except that what harm would it be? Would it be a bylaw infraction to grow food on a lot and maybe sell it at the farmer's market if you
Own the lot?
have a house there? Like, what would happen to somebody who did that?
I mean, in essence, I would say that's the current situation. Like, if somebody asked me, I would say, okay, it's not, you're not compliant with the land use bylaw. There's no occupant. You can't, that's not a lawful permitted use. Same with if somebody's growing stuff in an SR2 zone and they're selling at the farmer's market. Again, it's like, well, that's not technically meeting our bylaw. If we received complaints, then bylaw would investigate.
But because we don't have any fines associated with it or regulations, it would be a decision on whether we took that property owner, farmer, grower to court or not?
I guess in theory, we could fine for lack of business license if the issue was they were selling it. Or we would be inviting people to apply for a temporary use permit or other mechanisms to change their land use.
I think these cases are pretty isolated. I'd be more prepared just to leave it the way it is and let people deal with it. And they're going to grow it on there anyway, so it doesn't, really matter. I don't see that it's that big a problem on Bowen Island.
Just a point of information, my understanding is that the sales of agricultural produce at the farmers market is covered by the farmers market business license.
Right, you're correct, Maureen. You wouldn't need a business license to sell at the farmers market.
Yeah, good point. Michael?
Well, I'm saying, look, it seems everybody wants people, frankly, to grow wherever they can, excellent produce and bring it to our farmers market. If this isn't a problem, and I don't think it ranks high on the list of problems, I wonder whether we could leave it as it is for the time being. I have little appetite, frankly, to go into exhaustive and time-wasting changes on something which really isn't an issue. Do we actually need to deal with something? Is there something pressing, Daniel, that we actually need to deal with?
I guess it's to the extent that the bylaw proposes a change and that people have provided comments opposed to the change. So it's if council wants to change the existing bylaw to remove proposed changes.
Bylaw, you mean 528.
Yeah.
Yeah. If people are frankly okay with as it is right now, given this issue, I'm loath to say why are we changing it?
I agree.
Let's leave it as it is and move on.
Michael,
Well,
that means you're wanting us to change 528 and put the definition of domestic agriculture back as a principal use. 528 makes it an accessory use.
It doesn't. If we do that, that's where we are now, and that doesn't seem to be an issue. So I guess I'm saying, well, if it's not an issue, why are we changing it?
And not deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not hearing a
I'm
motion.
happy with
Mayor.
just leaving everything the way it is. In 528.
yes, that's what I'm thinking, but I guess we should have some kind of a motion on that. Or do
No,
we need a motion? Just leave it and
Yeah.
move on. But
Yeah.
I just, is everybody in agreement with that or not?
They must be because nobody's making a motion.
Okay, well, let's move on. So number 6 is building definition. Daniel?
Yes, so building definition, let me start that one. Okay, so our bylaw, the land use bylaw defines building and includes this clause where buildings connected by a covered walkway located not more than 3 meters apart are deemed to be one building. And bylaw 528 would amend it to have a limit on the number of buildings, in essence, to limit sort of the daisy chaining of buildings together. After one example we had where people had sort of a number of buildings connected by covered walkways to link buildings together. So bylaw 528 would amend it to say up to 2 buildings connected by a covered walkway are deemed to be one building. And we received a comment from somebody saying that they would want it to have more buildings than that connected by a covered walkway be considered one building.
So, yeah, okay, good. Sorry, go ahead.
So if council wants to address that comment, then you'd move the motion that's number 6 there. And if not, then I would proceed.
and just to be clear, what
So
you
then
put in
it's 3
528 only allows a building with one connected building with one
Yeah.
covered walkway.
Exactly.
Which,
Now we're going to go to 2 connected buildings to the original. So a total of 3 buildings.
that's if we pass number 6. I vote
That's
we
correct.
keep going and forget number 6.
I'm not seeing any motions for number 6. I'm not going to move it.
Okay. Well, how's everybody feel about that?
Yeah, I do have a question. And I was thinking about a situation where you might have a principal home an attached secondary suite, and a garage. Would those constitute 3 buildings?
If they're separate buildings, yes.
If they're separate buildings, so there's a number of ways sort of you can build it. Like you could build the attached secondary suite as part of the main house. It's just a wing of the house as opposed to a separate building that's got a walkway connecting them.
Right.
So this would say, well, your house and your garage would be attached and the secondary suite could be connected by a walkway or vice versa, but it wouldn't let you have a house with a walkway to a suite with a walkway to a garage.
Right. And all constrained in terms of square footage.
Yeah.
Well, that would obviously have to fit into the building envelope, but yeah, so what they're saying here is they want to be able to connect 3 different buildings to make into one building, and they have to be within 10 feet of each other, right? So it's just what's going here is from 2 to 3 buildings. So is nobody in favor of even Sue Ellen? Go ahead. And then Maureen.
I'm not in favor of this because I think, and I've seen examples where people have connected up buildings and called them one building, and then they think they can build another one. So if we move, or if we do 6, I'm worried that people would add another building, and which would be outside of the bylaw. So I'm not going to move this motion.
Okay. Is anybody interested in moving the motion? If you are, go ahead and move it. Okay, I'm not seeing any response there, so I think this one's dead. And we'll move on to Fairweather Strata and
I will declare a conflict because I'm a resident of Fairweather Strata.
okay, thank you.
I'll just leave my camera on and I'll go
Have dinner or something. Okay, Daniel, go ahead.
Okay, so this is one comment was received and one speaker at the public hearing requesting council include a revised lot coverage formula for the RR1C zone variation for the Fairway Strata, to include that in bylaw 528.
Okay, comments? Let's start from the start here. I got Sue Ellen.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean for my hand to be up.
Okay, Maureen.
I think they should apply for a rezoning if that's what they wish, and not bundle it with the rest of these land use bylaw amendments.
Okay, anybody else have a comment? Daniel, is the reason this was even came up was because of the workload on staff. I mean, we've done 2 out there already, and you know, really, it's I don't think who knows what's going to happen. Do you think there's any point in bundling these to include amendment to?
I think when I first brought one of the variances, I presented it as an option to council to consider.
Right. Yeah.
And that was at a stage where we hadn't yet considered second reading for bylaw 528. And I thought, okay, maybe there's a window if council wants to proceed with it to include it in the bylaw. I felt like once we presented to council and council had not wanted that a rezoning application was by far the more appropriate approach.
Okay, yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think if they want to do that, they should come and present it to council and do a full change, a bylaw amendment on it. I think that would be the way to go, rather than us just stuffing it in there. Anybody else have a comment on that? Okay, so we're gonna let that one die on the vine also. And you can call Allison back and move on to the Island Trust Fund.
I'll move.
Quick one, yeah.
This is just a renaming to reflect a legal name change. So I move that council direct staff to amend bylaw number 528, 2020 to include an amendment. Oops, sorry, I'm in the wrong place. That council direct staff to amend bylaw number 528 to replace all instances of the name the Islands Trust Fund with the Islands Trust Conservancy.
Okay, that'll get the job done. I'll second that. And any further discussion on that? Don't see anybody. Okay, I will ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? No, see anybody there. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Adoption date. Okay, we've got, oh, jeez.
Sorry, I just need a second. I'm having trouble multitasking. I'm just gonna call Councilor Morse back if you just want to wait.
Okay.
I emailed her, but I imagine she's not looking at that right now.
Well, maybe you could start my video.
Yeah, there you go.
I've been
I
sitting here.
texted and called. Yeah.
That's why I went out and left my video on so that you could see that I wasn't here.
You can turn your video on.
Well, I just tried and you had me stopped.
There you go.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Hey,
And
Dan,
so the final number 9 is just to amend the bylaw to include an adoption date so that we can be very clear, with applicants, people, when the changes to things like height and lot coverage definition come into effect. So it's clear that at a certain date, we're gonna switch the method of calculation, but it's not just when council adopts it one night, but we can know in advance and let applicants know in advance when the change comes into effect.
So I'm happy to make the motion that council direct staff to amend bylaw number 528 to include a date of January the 1st, 2020. I said
22.
2022.
All right, yes.
For when the bylaw comes into effect.
Thank you, David, and I'll second that. Any
I had a
further
question.
discussion? Go ahead, Allison.
So this is now the end of September. This bylaw is going to be another month before it comes back. So what happens to all the building applications that are submitted by, the end of October before we even get back for, amended first, second, and third reading? It's going to take the building inspector to January before he even looks at those. So are they all going to get bounced and have to come back under the new rules?
So no, we would process them similar to when we adopted the new building bylaw in terms of it's the time, if the application is made, then in December, they would be done under the unamended bylaw 57, and then new applications received in the new year would be under the new, height and lot coverage regulations.
Okay, so it's not. Okay, so, yeah, but if it's a building permit, this bylaw doesn't apply to building permits. So, I mean, he's going to go back and look.
But it would be so for changes to things like building height and building and lot coverage. So the zoning check as part of a building permit to see if it complies with the zoning regulations.
Yeah.
We would then be looking at.
So that check is done with respect, as if on the basis of the regulations that were in effect at the time the application is submitted.
Yes, yeah.
Not at the time it's processed.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Maureen?
Yeah, could I just confirm that this is a discussion to inform revisions of the bylaw, and that the results of this discussion will be coming back to council, and that we are not at this time adopting the changes that we have discussed? Is that correct?
That's correct. And so the overall recommendation was to direct staff to make amendments and to bring bylaw 528 back for consideration of third reading, but not giving third reading at this meeting.
Right. So if there was any confusion in the back and forth in this discussion or unresolved matters, that we would have further opportunities to consider.
Yes.
Thank you.
Correct. Okay, thanks, Maureen. Back to the
Mayor
we got a
Ander.
first and a second, and yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. That last piece didn't get moved.
no, we
Sorry.
didn't quite finish.
Vote on
the
number
last
9.
question
Sorry,
on
I
that-
thought that had been.
on that last motion. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's all good. Thank you. Yeah, okay, that appreciate that, everybody. It burned up a lot of time, so let's
Sorry,
just move on here and see what's happening. Sorry, go ahead, Hope.
Daniel, did you want that motion that council directs staff to make the amendments as discussed at the September 27th regular council meeting and to bring it back in October? Do you, or is that?
I think I would prefer, yeah, that motion just to sort of bring it to completion.
I'll move it.
Yeah, oh, the conclusion one.
That,
Oh, hang
Yeah.
on.
I'm looking at
if-
what this recommendation besides 6.1. Is that the one?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
just amended it slightly.
But you can't use the wording is as there. It says.
No,
No,
it would have,
As
hopefully
it would
read it
have-
outlined
differently.
in the manager staff report. So,
I was just about to suggest some wording if I could get a word in.
Sure.
That council directs staff to make the amendments to bylaw number 528 as discussed at the September 27th regular council meeting, and then council directs staff to bring bylaw number 528 as amended to council at its October 25th regular council meeting for consideration.
That's perfect. I'll move that. Second. Thank you, Michael. And any further discussion? Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we're going to move on to staff reports. The petition to join the Cove Bay Water 279 Jason Road. Thanks from Patrick Graham, Director of Engineering. Sorry, Patrick, for the delay.
So we had a petition from resident 279 Jason Road to join the Cove Bay water system.
what happened to 7.1?
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Yeah, no. Sorry,
Yeah, I was
Patrick.
expecting something
7.1. I
different.
went to the 8.1. Sorry, Patrick. Amendment bylaw Cove Bay Water Local Area Service Expansion. Grafton Lake Lands Subdivision Phase 1. There you go, Patrick. Sorry.
Right.
Thanks, Al.
That's what I was expecting.
Okay, good.
So at the end of May 25th, the petition from the Grafton Lake Lands developers to add 23 residential units to the Cove Bay water system was brought before council, and this is the bylaw amendment recommendation that goes along with that. All of the financial contributions that were presented back in May have been agreed and remain the same. We'll get $10,000 per unit, 230,000 contribution to the Cove Bay water system capital reserve, and a 500 and the balance of it is for contribution to of 524,951 is the contribution to the construction costs that are related to the infrastructure serving that phase 1 subdivision. Has anyone got any questions? It's really the same information that was presented in May. I can show you, I can share my screen and show you the areas. So we're all on the same.
Yeah, I just there was different kinds of housing that were involved there, and they're all phase 1, aren't they?
Yeah, so I'll just share my screen and then
Yeah.
hopefully this will clarify it. So we're talking about the area up here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, the water treatment plant is up here, and then the phase 1 subdivision is in that area. The future phases are on the opposite side of Grafton Road.
Okay.
And so zooming into that area, essentially you've got Grafton Road here, the water treatment plant up here. So we're adding the water treatment plant lot. This.
I think your slide hasn't moved because we can't see here.
We'll zoom in.
We can. Okay, let me try that again. Sorry.
No worries.
Just couldn't see your cursor. It was clear you were pointing at something, but
Is that
Yeah, that's
better?
better. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there's a water treatment plant, an existing property here. This is the lot that will have the 10 non-market housing units, the duplex
Oh.
units. And then these are the 11 strata detached properties. And then there's one other existing property that's being included in the application. So that's a total of 23.
Okay, that's great. Any other questions here? Let me see.
I've got my hand up, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, go ahead, Allison.
okay, so the bylaw, the third whereas, just talks about necessary to include an additional 11 strata lots. So we either change it and detail the other lots, or we just say to include additional lots as per the schedule.
Which page are you on?
On the bylaw itself, and unfortunately, you have to scroll to the very end of all the attachments to find the bylaw. Maybe
Yeah.
next time the bylaws could be right after the staff report. So the third whereas just says deems it necessary to include an additional 11 strata lots.
Yeah.
Which I did send an email about on Friday or over the weekend. So I don't think that's correct. And then just a clarification, when you talk about 10 duplex units, so it's going to be 5 buildings, 2 units per building? Okay.
Yeah.
And then in your report, you talked about the money being paid. Is that just from the developer? What about the money from the 2 private lots?
That's included in the application. Well, one of the lots belongs to the developer, and then the other lot is another property owner.
Okay, but they're not. Okay, and traditionally, that money has been paid into the municipality before we give it 4th reading, not after adoption.
Well, in this case, this is a bit of a chicken and egg thing. There's the subdivision approval. This is the main remaining outstanding item that needs to be checked off for the subdivision approval. And that was the agreement with the developer was to make these contributions.
So the subdivision is going to get approved and we won't receive our money until after that.
Right.
That's the way it looks. Yeah.
Okay, Sheila's going to be there the next morning picking up the check, right? Okay. I think that was, I'm just looking at my notes. I think that's all the questions I have.
But it is, you're right that we should be referencing all the properties in the bylaw whereas statement.
Okay.
So it should say 28, 23. What was the number?
Could I
23.
could I suggest that it just say the specified lots? They're itemized below.
Okay.
So I move that the bylaw be amended to read the specified lots.
The third
I mean, the
whereas.
recommendation?
No, the bylaw itself. Do we have to amend the bylaw?
Well, the
Yes.
whereas is wrong.
It's a very minor amendment and I've captured it in the minutes, so we can just, if you just. say
Okay,
as-
good. All right.
Hey, there's 2 different recommendations here.
No, there's only one, that bylaw number 554/2021 cited as municipality Cove Bay Water System and Local Advisory Committee Purpose and Establishment bylaw number 9/2000. Amendment bylaw number 554/2021 as amended be read a first, second, and third time.
Okay, I'll second that. Thanks, Allison. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Get everybody there, Hope? Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to 8.1. It is petition to join the Cove Bay Water at 279 Jason Road, Patrick Graham. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay. So we did receive a similar process, smaller scale to the Grafton Lakes process that we went through this year. received a petition from a property on Jason Road to join the water system. This is a situation, I'll just share my screen. Let me see what I mean. We like to have our water mains along the public roads and then all the service connections from public right of way. In this case, the water main was built along the back of 1245 Ocean View and out to the cul-de-sac at the end of Jason Road this way for reasons I'm not sure about, but probably had to do with the properties that were connecting and the terrain. So the adjacent, the closest property wasn't willing to provide an easement. It makes things complicated because now there needs to be an easement between the property owners as well as the municipality. And we put the onus on the applicant to prepare those easements and have them reviewed by our own legal counsel. So that the property owner at 1245 Ocean View's on board. They've done ground penetrating radar to confirm where the water line is. And now there's a couple of properties, the adjacent neighbors are potentially interested as well. So we're really just looking for direction from council to draft the amendment bylaw to add this property. And potentially we'll be looking at adding the adjacent property. They haven't actually submitted a petition for that, but it would be wrapped up in the same amendment to the existing easement that we have going through that 1245 Ocean View and potentially establishing another easement for the service line. They've paid the financial contribution already, and they're aware that they would be responsible for the cost of the meter and the service connection and all of the survey and legal work needed to establish the easements. So,
All right.
Any questions?
Yeah, it's just he's kind of lucky where that water line went right up beside his property. That
Well, it would be luckier if it was in front of the house, then you don't have to.
Yeah, but it inadvertently been on the other side of the property line, yeah. So I'll make the motion
Thanks, Allison.
and I'll delete the last clause. The council directs staff to prepare an amendment bylaw for council for the expansion of the Cove Bay Water Local Area Service Boundary to add 279 Jason Road, period.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, good point. I'll second that, Allison. Thank you. Further discussion? No. Okay, I'll ask. Oh, sorry, Sue Ellen. Came on.
I'm just wondering, I think I must have missed why the subject to confirmation of the exact location part was taken off. Why did that clause disappear?
Because they found it.
Well,
They cut it.
they located it.
Oh, thank you. Okay, sorry. Just went. Phew.
Then I understand
All
the
right.
whole bunch of staff are there watching the process, so.
Is everybody's okay then? And we'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
All right.
All right. That's great. Thank you very much.
When would this come back, Patrick? The first meeting in October?
Well, once all the supporting information is complete, including the easements.
So you need the documented easement before it can go any further. I mean, we couldn't do 3 readings and then wait for then have the other stuff. Yeah. Okay.
They were just looking for confirmation that council supported before spending more money on it, which is
Here.
common.
Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot, Patrick. And we'll move on to 8.2, which is acquiring a public trail easement, Schooner Lane to Crown Land, Mount Gardner, and Schooner Lane to Arbutus Ridge. Bonnie Brokenshire, manager of the Environment and Parks Planning. Hello, Bonnie, if you're there.
Yeah, can you hear me, Mayor and Council? Everything's
Yeah.
good? And you can see my presentation?
Yes.
Great. So the purpose of tonight's report is to present council with the opportunity for Bowen Island Municipality to acquire a public trail easement over PID 015891763, which I'll refer to as the subject property from here on in, that would ensure legal public trail access. This trail has been an important trail linkage for many years and utilized by many islanders over the years. In July of this year, the owners of the said property contacted me to see if BIM would be interested in obtaining an easement over the trail that runs through their property. The current property owners, I must say, have been very generous by allowing the public to use the trail that runs through their property for many, many years. However, the land that supports this vital trail linkage is likely to be sold in the foreseeable future. The trail is situated on the west side of the island, and the most western portion of the trail passes over Schooner Lane. The remainder of the trail, which is the forested portion, is well defined, and the trail connects Schooner Lane to the Crown Land and Schooner Lane to Arbutus Ridge Trail Network, which is becoming quite extensive and really, really great trail conduits. The trail is about 650 meters in length. The proposed easement would encompass the current trail and would ensure legal public access along the established pathway. Council could decide to not pursue the trail easement at this time and instead seek to obtain it through a rezoning or subdivision, at which point it would be the developer's cost. However, there's no certainty of that taking place at any set time. Not proceeding with the easement at this time could be at the risk of losing the trail route for many years. We're not sure what will transpire. Therefore, staff is recommending going forward with securing the trail. The financial considerations, it's estimated the cost will be approximately $5,000. And this includes both the legal and surveying expenses. And this can be absorbed in the 2021 Parks operating budget, as COVID has sort of, and some park staff changes and injuries and such have allowed there to be some excess monies in the parks operating budget. BIM would not be responsible for maintenance of the road portion, but BIM would be responsible for the maintenance from the intersection of Schooner Lane through the forested portion of the trail up to the Crown Land at a cost of approximately $400 annually. And if necessary, the park's operating budget in the future could be adjusted for this increase to allow the trail maintenance of the proposed easement, sorry. As part of the agreement between BIM and the property owner, the municipality would include the easement area through BIM's insurance policy. So this report is being disseminated to the public through this meeting and minutes. And I'm suggesting that we contact the property owners that currently access Schooner Lane or use Schooner Lane to access their properties. Many of them are aware of this proposal. Schooner Lane is a private road, and the neighboring properties' access to the properties would not be impeded by this proposed easement. So the recommendation before council tonight is that council direct staff to draft and execute a public trail easement agreement between Bowen Island Municipality and the property owners of PID 015891763 at a cost of up to $5,000 to be funded from the 2021 Parks operating budget. And I do have an alternative there that council does not proceed at this time with the direction to staff to draft a public trail easement.
All right. Thank you, Bonnie. That's a nice little gift, sort of. Comments, anybody? I think it's a wonderful operation here.
There's 4 hands up.
Yeah, let's start with David and then Sue Ellen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Gary. I was very surprised and very pleased to see this. This is a trail I use regularly. It's a great trail. As staff have explained it, it covers, it does a lot of connections. So it's great that this property owner has allowed people to use this over the years, and it's great that they're offering it up now. So I would be very pleased to move this, and I'll speak more if I need to defend it, but I think probably we'll all agree. I'll leave it for there.
Yeah. Thank you, David. And Sue Ellen?
David has said it very well. I would just say that this seems to me, in my experience, to be inexpensive. It's secured for the future. It fits with our active living guidelines, with the parks plan and the official community plan, many foundations of our community's wishes. And so I'm in favor, and I'll leave it to somebody else to make the motion.
Okay, thank you. Allison, and then we'll go back to David for the motion.
We've got
Maureen's
Maureen's got
got
a hand up too. And,
Oh, does
and
she?
Rob. My question has to do with,
Right.
do we have our legal counsel prepare the easement document, or do we do it ourselves? And if we do it ourselves, will it be reviewed by legal counsel?
Yes, we have a lot of templates that we've used for trail easements. So I'm proposing that we draft it, or I would draft it, and then I would have it vetted by legal counsel.
Okay, thank you. I'll take that as a will happen. I won't put legal counsel review in the motion then.
Okay, Maureen?
I'd just like to second Councillor Hawkins' motion.
Okay, thank you. And if there's no further discussion,
Rob's got his hand up.
who does?
Just a quick question, Gary.
I have to keep going back and forth here. Sorry about that.
Well, so Bonnie, the benefit really to the property owner is that we'll cover insurance and maintenance. That would be the totality. There's no other benefits to them. This is basically out of their kindness. They're making it official, which used to be an unofficial trail. Correct?
Yes, that's
Thanks.
correct.
Okay, great.
All right. So if there's no further discussion, I will ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. And thank you, Bonnie. And we're going to move on to 8.3, which is the development variance permit, DVP 2021-0243 for 1673 Evergreen Lane. Daniel Martin. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you again. So I have a variance permit for introduction. So this variance permit is located on Evergreen Lane at 1673. So it's a vacant lot currently at the end of Evergreen Lane, right at the turnaround point. And this property is located in area 1 of the CD12 zone. So most relevant for this zone and for this application are the setbacks, which have a 3 meter from the front, 3 meter from the side, and a 7.5 from the rear. And just relevant for this too is in terms of our lot line definitions and what we define as a front lot line being the shortest lot line common to a lot and a highway. And then the rear lot line is the lot line opposite and most distant from the front lot line. So when we look at 1673 here, I've shown where our bylaw puts the front lot line is on that little part of the lot that's common to, so it's marked in orange. So this being the front and then this being the rear on this side. So compared with the other lots, which have a frontage and a rear lot line here, there's just a little larger to see. And so what the application is in essence is to move the rear lot line to this rear part of the lot, sort of the distant part of the lot, and make that a 7.5 setback and move this lot line to a 3 meter setback. And then the other thing to note as not as part of the application, but prior to this application being made, that the property owner was in talks with the municipality to enter into a covenant. So the property borders a small park area with a bench installed at the end of this park with a viewpoint looking out and over it. And the landowner was concerned that without a covenant, that upon sale of the lot, the new owner could build a fence or build plant hedges or something in front of the bench and block the public viewpoint. So the proposed covenant would limit structures and limit vegetation within the covenant area so that the public viewpoint would be maintained, so that even after the house is developed, that the public could still use this little walkway and proceed to the bench to have the viewpoint looking out. So I'm introducing that to you now, and then if we come back for consideration, we would look for council direction to enter into the covenant at that time as well. And just the last thing I'll note before the recommendation is you'll see in the report we've received letters of support from 2 immediate neighbors who also represent the president and the secretary of the strata.
All right, David.
Thank you, Gary. I'm happy to speak to this one as well because it's also part of my regular walking route. And that is, it's a great bench. It's a great little public park right in the middle of, well, with a beautiful view, a fabulous view, but properties on both sides. So this is a clever change to move get the back to the back and to protect the view. So I'm full support of both actions.
Thank you, David. Sue Ellen?
Thank you. I'm in full support of both as well. It's not on my regular walking route, but I was part of making it happen back in the day on some committee or another. And I'm sure Councillor Morse remembers it as well, but this is great. This is better protecting that wonderful little viewpoint. And I think the setback changes make sense. Thank you for that law.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. Any other comments there? I think it's like Christmas again here. So
Coming early.
Yeah, recommendation is that notice be given to council will be considering the issuance of development variance permit DVP 2021-0143 for the variance of side and rear setbacks for 1673 Evergreen Lane, legally described as Strata Lot 3, District Lot 492, Group 1, New Westminster District Strata Plan BCS 3421 PID 027-933-792 at the October 25th, 2021 meeting of council. And the council authorized staff to give notice for the consideration of issuance of development variance permit DVP 2021-0143 in accordance with section 499 of the Local Government Act to all properties within 100 meters of the legal boundary of 1673 Evergreen Lane, legally described as Strata Lot 3, District Lot 492, Group 1, New Westminster District Strata Plan BCS 3421 PID 027-933-792. I'll move that.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you, David. And I don't think there's going to be further discussion. All in favor? Aye.
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 Awesome. Well done. That's terrific news, that one. That's great. And we'll move on to 8.4, which is a covenant amendment for 1430 Eagle Cliff Road. Randy Poulin, Nicole Poulin, Ernest Poulin, and Carol Poulin. And over to you, Daniel Martin, Manager of Planning and Development. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my last report for the night is this covenant amendment 1430 Eagle Cliff. So located along Eagle Cliff, it's quite a long skinny lot that's accessed by an easement off of Eagle Cliff. So there's the lot itself with the building site on the lot. So there's a restrictive covenant BB 1078041 that was placed on the lot at time of subdivision. That has a number of restrictions. It has requirements for sprinklers, a number of other things, but two of the restrictions are it has a prohibition on secondary suites on the lot, and it also has an area of the lot that's designated as you're not allowed to build a building or structure there because of risk of rockfall. The applicant would like to remove those two restrictions. So staff, when receiving the application, reviewed it, conducted a site visit. So I'd say staff have no concern with the proposed removal to the prohibition for secondary suites. So these were commonly placed by the municipality at time of subdivision, around the time of legalization of secondary suites. Council removed an identical prohibition on a neighboring property in 2018. So now the neighbors come to ask for the same removal of the prohibition. And in terms of the rockfall covenant, it was included in the original covenant, and the applicant provided an updated geotechnical assessment, which recommended that the rockfall covenant could be removed. So based on that recommendation, and based on the site visit, staff don't have concerns with that proposal either.
All right. Why did we put in the restriction on the secondary suite? Any idea?
I can't remember.
No, okay.
I,
This is one
I
one
can
of those
vaguely
things.
remember the rezoning, because I think I remember which property it is, but it was the couple that, oh, yeah. But I can't remember why the prohibition on secondary suites.
Daniel, do you know why?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a few, and I know some of them were placed on because of concerns about access or like number of people
Yeah.
along a shared driveway. So I remember, and I know if you linked the report in 2018, that was part of the consideration at that time, was asking for a review of the driveway to say that it could handle it, and that wasn't a concern.
Okay. Sue Ellen?
Yeah, thank you. Question for the planner. I'm looking at the third paragraph under background, and it says 1428 Eagle Cliff is served by private water and on-site septic. Is that the same for 1430 Eagle Cliff, which is the topic of this?
Yeah. Yes, that is the same.
Okay. So 1430 Eagle Cliff is served by private water and on-site septic.
Yes,
Will
thank
there
you, Sue.
be, and so here's my question. I think I've asked this before, and forgive me for not remembering, but will the current septic field handle another suite? Or how does that work? I just don't want there to be pollution.
Yeah, so 1430, I mean, is currently vacant. I believe that they have installed their septic field on site. At time of building permit, they're required to file with VCH the plan for the septic field. And part of that consideration is number of bedrooms and occupants of the house. And then we certify that the filing was accepted by Coastal Health, that was done by a septic engineer that meets the requirements.
So when they add a suite, is any consideration made to the capacity of the septic bed?
Yes, so I don't know what was installed there initially. So it may be, you know, it was large enough to cover a house and a suite, or it may be that the changes that need to be made to the septic field at time of building permit.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Comments? So the recommendation is that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to approve the proposed covenant amendment for 1430 Eagle Cliff Road, legally described as Strata Lot 1, District Lot 1552, Group 1, New Westminster District Strata Plan, BCS 3465. I will move that. Looking for a second.
Second, Gary.
Thank you, Michael. And any further discussion? Sue Ellen, I see your hand up there, but doesn't look like you're interested. Okay, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye. All right, terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to 8.5, which is the administrative procedures policies. Hope Dallas, corporate officer. Over to you, Hope.
At this time, I think I'm going to recommend
Okay.
that council defer consideration of adoption of the policies to its October 12th regular council meeting.
Are you doing that because of time?
Yes.
Okay.
Good idea. Do you
All
need a
right.
motion to that effect?
Yes, please. Just a mover and a seconder on that would be great.
I move it.
Sorry, second? Sue Ellen?
Second.
Okay, Allison, I guess. All right, and then we'll move down to correspondence.
All in favor?
Oh, yeah, that's right, sir. We got to vote on that.
We're getting late. Yes, thank you. Hope.
No, still early though. Aye. All right, thank you. Did you get that, Hope? Good. So we'll move on to boards, committees, council, commissions, and we're dealt with in the consent agenda, down to new business. CAO update, Liam Edwards, Chief Administrative Officer. Go ahead, Liam.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So a couple of things I wanted to just bring you, give you some updates on. One is just a brief COVID update, and also an update on some of the planning initiatives with our partners at the Islands Trust and Metro. And just wanted to give a COVID update because we haven't met in quite some time, and really wanted to express my appreciation to all staffs hard work and commitment to continuing to serve Bowen Island and through this pandemic. It really did have a feeling like there was a sort of level of complacency that was setting in and amongst the community at times. I think the community at large as a whole also do a great job as well and on with respect to COVID and any protocols that we've had in place. But there was a sort of a little bit of complacency that was occurring, it felt like, and that the fourth wave that is kind of upon us now is very real and has some really significant concerns, for the municipality and the staff here, in particular the frontline workers. And so those are our recreation folks and our frontline admin staff at the Muni Hall, and our public works team and parks folks that are out in and around the community. And they've been doing a fantastic job at trying to navigate the changing protocols from the minister and from the chief medical health officer. But there are community members that don't agree with those changing protocols, and so they've had to bear the brunt of that. I've seen some pretty poor behavior in the municipal hall, but witnessed excellent responses from staff. Now, when I'm saying poor behavior, from some individuals that come in and aren't happy with the protocols. And in particular, just wanted to share support for the rec team that are having to do that difficult work of checking passports, and as well as for the businesses on Bowen that are also having to do that difficult work. And that it just needs to be stated again and again that it's not the municipality and it's not the businesses that are making the decision to do this, and that any frustration should not be taken out on any staff. And so I think, though, that our team is bearing quite well under the pressure of a year and a half into this pandemic. And I do want to recognize that COVID fatigue is real, and that we are seeing some of those signs of that amongst our team, and that is something that we're alive to, and we're trying to make sure that staff are well supported through that. But I just want to make sure that with all of you that this is continuing to take its toll, and but we are watching that closely. We continue to also look at our after action report, which was completed last summer, it was completed in the fall, really, after we stood down the EOC, and we continue to work on the recommendations that came out of that. Of the 41 recommendations, we've completed almost 20 of them, and we have the majority of the others underway. And most of that looks at streamlining our EOC operations, improving the efficiency and the effectiveness of how we engage in an emergency and a response. And a lot of the things that we've done are really transferable to other emergencies, including making the entire team more mobile. And so whenever we buy a new computer, we make sure it's a laptop. And we've actually gone through the process, just from a timing perspective, that a lot of our computers were due to be replaced. And so the majority, if not all of the staff are now more mobile and more flexible. So I just wanted to share with you that that's ever present, and we're constantly communicating with Vancouver Coastal and our Metro colleagues and staying abreast of the changing situation. Any questions on COVID and how the municipality is handling things at this time? Okay, hearing none. I wanted to give you a brief update with where we're at with the staff review of the Islands Trust Policy Statement, as well as Metro 2050. They're two very large, very comprehensive and significant planning processes occurring at the same time. The Islands Trust Policy Statement, staff have reviewed the current version of the policy statement, and we've had a very productive initial meeting with the Islands Trust staff. And we've shared all of our, at a staff level, all of our concerns and suggestions. Basically what we'll be doing is bringing forward a staff report to council for consideration and dialogue. In the same time, we're doing that work for the Metro 2050 initiative as well. And We haven't had a staff-to-staff meeting with Metro on that, but we'll be bringing forward the same type of report with recommendations. We want to bring that forward to council together in one committee of the whole meeting. And we're going to be aiming for the first week of November with the goal to bring the recommendations to council at the November 8th meeting. That would allow us time to make any changes that council might want in those recommendations for our responses back to Metro and to the Islands Trust. The Metro folks have asked for a deadline of November 22nd for the response, for the referral. And the Islands Trust had asked actually for, they had asked for the end of October, but they recognized our timeline and they're willing to work with what we've presented. So any questions on that process? Councillor Morse.
Is the Islands Trust going to do a Bowen Island consultation? I didn't read through the consultation plan. I got it out to look at it, but I ran out of time.
Yeah, we'll be well positioned to get our comments back in this time frame, because there will be quite a bit of time, I think, before the first reading is actually going to.
I meant a community consultation. Maybe Sue, I'll ask Sue Ellen in the Islands Trust update.
There is a plan to have a more direct a community engagement with all the islands.
Okay, and with Metro 2050, are we going to ask them to do a presentation on the plan? We sort of had an overview, but not really a 2050 plan presentation.
We can ask for that if council would like that. Barring that, staff would be reviewing all of the documents and bringing that to council.
And I'll bring up Transport 2050 in my report.
Okay. Is that it, Liam?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So on to the Metro Vancouver Director, David Hawking. David.
Thank you, Gary. I'm just following up on Allison's question to Liam 2 seconds ago. Metro 2050, I mean, we had sort of the overview, but it is a huge document. And I guess I'm just wondering when, like, nobody answered the question. Does anybody want to have a presentation from Metro staff on that? I guess I just want to ask, is that something that you'd like to have, or we just staff go through it and staff give us their comments?
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with staff.
Mm.
Yeah.
I would like a council presentation.
Could we have it as part of the committee of the whole?
I would recommend doing that if we could, if before the committee of the whole, if that would work with their timeline.
Okay.
I can reach out to Jerry, to the CAO there, and request one. I know they're going around and doing lots of them, so yeah.
Okay.
I also thought it was a way to get it out in front of our general public.
We might, so I could, I mean, we might need to work with their timing. So we could try to, if it doesn't work to get it on a council agenda, we could perhaps ask for a separate one-off committee of the whole.
Sure. That'd be great.
I'd really appreciate that. It's quite an amazingly comprehensive document, and it's yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
And I've got a couple of other things. I've had two meetings, a Climate Action Committee meeting a couple of Fridays ago, and I'm going to send everybody what I mentioned in our meeting with the minister. The Clean Air Plan was presented, and this is a quite an amazing document and it's combining sort of a greenhouse gas reduction and harmful pollutants reduction into the same plan, since the causes are often quite similar. I'll send it so you can have a look at it, but it's a really comprehensive and quite remarkable document. 2 points. One, which I made with the minister, is that really to deal with these issues, collaboration is absolutely necessary because nobody has the authority or the budget to do everything, and it requires everybody kind of working together. The second point is that, and then I didn't mention this, is that despite 136 actions, I think it is, and 29 big moves, an amazingly comprehensive plan. The target is greenhouse gas reduction of 45% by 2030. They're getting to 15%. With all of this work, an amazing amount of work, they're only getting to 15. They're getting a third of the way there. And the gap is all about innovation, and the innovation that's needed, because some of the technologies are there, some aren't there yet, and some will be coming in sort of after 2030, but we need to be moving towards those as soon as we can. I'll come back to that in a moment. The second thing that I thought was interesting in the board meeting last Friday was a presentation by the Metro Vancouver Regional Economic Prosperity Service. You saw that news release today. It's now called Invest Vancouver. And I think from reading also our own draft economic development plan, I think there's some relationship between the two that would be worthwhile to have a look at. There's all sorts of recommendations that are in, you saw them in the news release in Invest Vancouver. But in some of the background material, there's a couple of areas that they're really focusing on in terms of where our region has a competitive advantage. And one is that innovation gap on climate change that I was just talking about, is that they sort of link the economic development plan to filling some of that innovation gap. And it's a lot of that will be around transportation, the clean tech companies that we already have here, some of the work on hydrogen that we have here. So that was interesting because, of course, innovation in transportation is one of the things that we need here on Bowen Island for social reasons as well as environmental reasons. The other area of focus is digital media. And I think that that sort of lines up with quite a few of my friends work in the digital media business. They can, in COVID times, they work here at home or they go in sometimes and so on. But that is certainly an area where I think Bowen has quite a few people who are involved in that. And I also saw elements of that in our economic development plan. So those folks who are interested on the economic development side, I encourage them to have a look at the Metro Vancouver's Invest Vancouver initiative. And I think that's it for me. Thank you very much, Gary. Happy to answer any questions, but I will send that document around on the Clean Air Plan.
Okay, thank you, David. Any questions? All right, so we'll move on to the Islands Trust Municipal Trustees. Baston Gale, update to council, please.
Would you like to go first, Michael?
No, go ahead, please.
Okay, I'll be brief. I just wanted to let you know in the information items in our agenda, they go from 12.30 A through G are all Islands Trust things. And then there's a couple of new ones that I'll just mention here. One of them is following up on Councillor Morris's question and Liam's presentation about Islands Trust. The trust policy statement, which is like the regional growth strategy or the regional preserve and protect strategy, let's call it that, for the whole Islands Trust area behind our OCPs that need to align with it. Anyway, we adopted a scenario for enhanced public engagement. So there will be more public engagement coming about the trust policy statement, and we've hired consultants, and so it'll be more than the usual, more than staff can do off the side of their desk. And so I'm looking forward to that. I wanted to let you know, as a collaborative opportunity, the Islands Trust received a grant for $368,000 to improve development permit application service and delivery and related kind of tech improvements. So I thought this might be, because we're part of the Islands Trust, and if we do want to take some of the development application processes further online or integrate it better with BOMAP and planning department, there might be some possibilities that staff to staff might want to explore there. I wanted to, I think that's in the, yes, it's down there under F in our agenda. And we just had a trust council meeting last week where some of this was covered, including adopting further public engagement and other things we covered that I just wanted to bring to your attention. Let me know if you want any of this. Is residential floor area ratio discussion paper related to housing. And Michael, I think you are on that committee and you were aware of that. So Michael might be able to bring that to the housing committee if there's interest, or I can. Shoreline protection discussion paper. Again, this is before to help Bowen Island Municipality and all the local trust committees do some of the work together before they do the fine tuning of customizing it for their for everybody's special island situations. And so they're discussion papers basically. We had delegations from Salish Sea Institute, Rain Coast Conservation Foundation, Moving Around Pender and others, and oil spill planning presentation from DFO and the Coast Guard, vessel drift and response by San Juan County, our compatriots there across the border who we work with. So we'll probably be recommending a big rescue tug near Saanich and that kind of thing. I won't go on and on, but it was a very interesting meeting, and please let me know if you want more information about any of this, and I'll pause.
Thanks, Sue Ellen. Michael?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you, Sue Ellen. And indeed, it was a 3-day event. And one of the things also, we were treated to a presentation on the biosphere too, which I think was generally speaking very well received. The policy statement, I think they allocated, Sue Ellen, was it an extra $80,000 in assistance? I'm trying to get the absolute figure right, but we've actually, the trust has allocated from reserves an extra, I think, am I correct in 80,000?
I don't have the figure in front of me. I was concentrating on our municipal agenda.
No, I think it is, but anyway, the reason being, getting this message out across all the islands is a real challenge. Is a real challenge, and recognized as such. And also, I must say, as you can appreciate, for every island, the opinions vary hugely. So there is a lot of differing opinions on the policy statement. So it's going to be quite something to work our way through all the feedback, because the feedback will vary hugely. And I think to meet the current timelines, congratulations if they're met. I wouldn't be at all surprised if in all reasonableness they were not. It's just a logistical, extremely difficult, challenging task. So the management consultants continue to interview all trustees for the review of the Islands Trust, and they are now talking to staff throughout the Islands Trust. And that work, they have been very busy behind the scenes. They're doing the interviews. There is not much to report back, except that they are doing the task that they have been set. So more to follow in due course. I think apart from that, I thank Sue Ellen. I think we've covered the rest. So we'll move on to the next speaker. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Michael. And we'll move on to Councillor Nicholson, re-update to Council on Metro Vancouver Regional Parks Committee meetings.
Thank you, Mayor Ander. The Parks Committee met at the beginning of this month on September the 8th, I believe it was, and full agenda. The main focus that might be of interest to folks here is that we're a couple of months away from having a final building strategy for all of the buildings within Metro Vancouver. The strategy, we provided feedback on it at the September 8th meeting, and it's coming to the board, David, in November of this year. So just to recap, there are 335 buildings. They counted them all, and that ranges from the toilet at the corner of Miller Road to very posh, beautiful old heritage homes and interpretive centers that are in the park system. So what they've been doing is they've been trying to inventory and evaluate the buildings in terms of their integrity, do an asset management exercise, more or less. And they have come up with some figures around total replacement value and so forth. But basically what they're trying to figure out are which of these buildings are essential to park function, which of these buildings may have a display function within the park, and which of these buildings do not have a park function and could be used for other purposes. What was interesting to me in this report, what was new in this report, is there has been a slight expansion of the compatible uses for regional park buildings. They've always been really clear on what the core uses are in the park, but the compatible uses are expanding a little bit. So, for example, the fish hatchery, that's a compatible use. Office space, that's a compatible use for park-related organizations like Bowen Heritage, for example. But the new things are that they have added art display and or studio. I haven't seen that previously. And they've added passive interpretive displays, including display of the building itself. And that's presumably there as a consequence of the Belcarra cabins out in Canmore. So a bit more of an expansion, and also a final note that, and I'll just read it. In the event that a use for a park building is proposed and it's not covered in the above list, the proposed use will be evaluated to determine if it nonetheless provides a benefit to park visitors and or the park natural environment, is consistent with the regional parks plan, parks management plan, and Metro Vancouver policy, and is suited to the proposed location. So there's a bit of openness there that hasn't been there in the recent past, and that was very nice to see. So that's my report.
Great, thank you, Maureen. And we'll move on to Councillor Alison Morse. Update to council on TransLink's mayor's council meetings.
Okay, have not met because of summer holidays, August off. Just going back to the trust, my question was, will there be a specific event consultation on the policy statement held for just Bowen Island? And I didn't get a yes to that.
We have asked for, I've been looking at the document while we were talking, and what we've asked for now is we've got a plan, and that's in our agenda. So that plan includes the option to have that. Not every community is going to want it. We could certainly ask for it, I believe. And that's, if we want it, we will get it. That's my understanding. And they have to hire the consultants and work out all those kinds of details. But I think that's something staff to staff, or however we want to do it, is well within the realm of possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so back to, you all should have received an email from Steve Vanagas inviting you to a Transport 2050 elected official engagement process. 3 choices of dates, so and it's all going to be by Zoom. So if you please put one of those on your calendar, and we're just going to have a workshop on the final versions of it on Thursdays or Wednesday, so that it can be sent out in advance to people. People will be able to read, and they'll be launching the public engagement process. Part of the discussion in the beginning about the public engagement process was that TransLink would go out with Metro Vancouver to present Metro Vancouver 2050 and Transport 2050, because they've been trying to align them and have, so not have any conflicting objectives and things like that. And I don't think there have that, that's been a good job to do so far. So if we were going to have Metro Vancouver come and talk about 2050, it would be a good time to have TransLink come and talk about TransLink 2050. And our chance to push for some of the benefits that we would like to see in the North Shore routes alignments and things like that. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thanks, Allison. So 11.6 is moved to a closed meeting. The recommendation is that council move to a closed meeting immediately following the regular council meeting to discuss items pursuant to section 91 A, E, and G, L, and K of the community charter. I'll move that.
I'll second.
Thank you, Rob. And any further discussion? Maureen, I see your hand up there.
Yeah, just a quick question. It's not
Yeah.
related to this motion.
Okay.
Is there a BC Ferries 2050 in the wings? Does anyone know?
No,
Okay,
not
thank
that
you.
I heard.
That's unfortunate.
So I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. And we'll just move on through the information items, 3 pages of those. And
Received them already.
yes, lots of those. Question period. I don't think there's anybody hanging out there, is there all? And we will adjourn this meeting, and we did pretty well on that. Thank you, everybody. 5 minutes for everybody.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Do we come back to
Okay.
this link or a different link?
Different.
It's in the calendar invite.
Okay,
Thank
super
you.
duper.
Just checking.
Thank you. Thanks,
Okay, see y'all.